Well, I want to just go back to a previous teaching just for a few minutes, and then we'll jump into really a teaching poem today, poem that's a distilled teaching uh, for meditation. But a couple weeks ago, uh, worked with a poem that was called "What If There Is No Problem," and it included that is that koan. What if there is no problem? That Zen kind of mystery question or puzzling question. What if there is no problem? Uh, I got from a Tasmanian Zen master, John Tarrant, who I like a lot. Very creative. So he says to his students, "What if there is no problem?" Well, I got a couple of um, intense emails about that from the community, which I love really. And basically said, "What do you mean? What if there is no problem? Is this guy crazy? Look at all the injustice. Immigrants dying, in the Mediterranean every day. Immigrants up against the border. And I understood what they're saying. And I think Zen masters are always working on two levels, and that it brings back another kind of truth, which is how you see is what you see. And they were seeing something that was totally unbelievable. The guy said, "What do you mean there's no problem?" Well, it all depends on where you're looking from, or what you're looking at. I think the other level, because obviously there's injustice, obviously there's hunger, obviously there's Haiti. I'm sitting here with Tom Troutman. He's making a retreat here, and he has a parish in Haiti too with his church, and we were talking about it because Jill was kindly letting everybody in, and it's just a mess there. It's not saying that. That's not what the Zen master's getting at. It would be more like he's looking right at you, and he's saying, "What if there's no problem with you?" And everybody needs to hear that. Who really is not caught in that there's something wrong with me thing. And so I say take it that way, that he's saying, well, what if there's no problem with you? What if you actually have all the equipment to just be such a terrific force in the world for good? What if you are a whole and complete already? We just don't know it. And to understand that, you got to look at it from a little different point of view. How you see is what you see. Really try to take that in, put it up somewhere, because what we've been working with now, going into the fourth year, is the idea that we have three built-in operating systems in us. There's the operating system of the childhood operating system that saw in a certain way, and thank goodness we had it as children. We would never have made it. And thank goodness for whatever kindness we found in our own family with our siblings and parents. But that's just one way of looking at things. You're looking for survival and security, affection and esteem, power and control. Then we actually could bring this other one online. At some point, I had an incredible mother. She taught us all to read before we even went to nursery school. And if you're reading, you're developing that frontal part of the strategic mind to make print into meaning. And so then as we go into school, we developed the strategic operating system, which relates to the ego. Now the ego has a little more strategy. Uh, we can deal with time and space more efficiently. Okay. Uh, you can use a watch. You can, Tom wanted to come up. He came up right around 10:30, just like we talked about. Well, that's functional ego stuff. Nothing wrong with that. But what if the third operating system it just isn't online? If all you had is the childhood operating system, and then the we tend to think that we're complete once we go to school. Maybe you go to Notre Dame or Harvard or something. You got a PhD. We think, well, we're at the top of the heap. We are not, according to the deepest spiritual traditions. We have a third operating system, which is called the heart operating system. The fact that so many human beings are not bringing that online, it's in there, it's ready to activate, but it's just not online, explains the world. Why, why we see a fairly heartless situation everywhere we look and so much suffering, because we have to do this work. And it's not it's not created by anybody else. We have to do this work. If once you bring your heart operating system, everything looks different. When you view it from a kind of childhood tribal mentality, certain things appear to be true. And then from a rational, linear mind, words, concepts, the world looks a certain way. And then, but the heart sees it totally different. So we're going to sort of explore that. And, you know, uh, I don't think you guys are audience here, or we're not like some kind of, we're not like a community with where I'm the leader and everybody else listens to this or something that does something. No, we're all practitioners, and we're practicing. The heart to heart is not just like a catchy title. It's the practice. You know, from the very beginning, you know, the job is to bring your human heart online and to connect it. Once you get online, it can connect with the heart of the universe, the heart of this great mystery, the heart of the divine. And that's where the connection, the deepest connection, happens. And then the world looks different. Then, if you're looking through the eyes of the heart, if you see somebody hungry, you feed them. If you see somebody thirsty, you give them a glass of water. If you see somebody who's, you know, without a house, you know, just on the street, you find them shelter. It's not like you have to have a law there. It's not like you have an outward morality or anything. It's like once the heart's viewing things, it just acts. Say, once you know, the heart who sees these immigrants, 100 million immigrants all over, you know, just trying to, they can't live where they're living for either climate or political reasons. And so they just got to move. They got to go somewhere. But the human populations have moved for all time. All of a sudden, when you see it through the mind and what the mind, the mental ego, it says, oh, these guys are coming in to take my stuff or whatever. Security, you see. Take my job. It's not true. This is not some, this has been going on for as long as human beings have been on the planet. They've been on the move. That's how we got here. You know, my parents came here from Italy because they couldn't live there. Nobody does this because they want to see another country. My daughter just treated little girl, for her feet were sore. She walked from Nicaragua. She walked from Managua to Texas, and then by some brilliant happening, they got to Louisville, and mother brought her in. Her feet hurt, and she said, "Well, what? Give me a little history." And she said, "Well, we walked from Managua to Brownsville, Texas, and then we got in, and because there's somebody in Louisville that could vouch for her, which was a kind of miracle. But how many of them don't get in?" She said, "Well, honey, there's nothing wrong with your feet." She walked for 1,000 miles in flip flops, you know. But we don't realize that's who these people are. See, nobody's doing this for fun or to get your flat screen. This is a story here. See, and then the heart knows that. Just broke Elizabeth's heart, and she gave her this. You see somebody, you know, that's another thing. You see somebody ill, you give them health care. The fact that our country does not have health care for anybody who's sick. The heart's not online here. You know, these are guys who are counting beans and money and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the heart doesn't see it that way. Say, in no tradition would that make any sense. So we got some work to do. So how do we bring our heart online? See, that's the topic of the poem today. So I'm going to read the poem. And a poem you may know because it's in my latest collection, The Cave of the Heart. And I'll read the poem, and then I'm just going to touch base on a few things, and then we'll hopefully it can give you some help in trying to bring your own heart online. If you're not interested in that, maybe, you know, I don't know why you're here, honestly. If you do, you know, because if you're not interested, I mean, that's the main thing here. Okay, so this one's called Cor Unum, one heart. If you consent to practice with cheerful perseverance and stay committed to simply dropping your awareness down through the body, down into the cave of the heart. Then, one fine morning, with no hint of warning, the beloved will simply appear at your back door. And then you'll be eternally one heart, shining like the sun. So that's 60 words, by the way. That's the length of my poem. That's a long poem for me. I like to get right to the heart of it, as they say. So let's just go back through that again. If you consent to practice, well, first thing is consent. You're consenting to be here. Hell, I went to church for a long time because I was afraid of going to hell. It wasn't really consent. It was like fear, the whole bit. Well, nobody forced you to come here. You are by nature consenting. Okay, so all right, you're here. And that's the first thing and the most important thing. If you're going to become a practitioner, to consent. If you consent to the practice. Now you have to look at practice a little differently. It's not like the way you practice the piano so you can get better at the piano. We have this statement, which was a total landmine for me as a one on the Enneagram, practice makes perfect. No, it doesn't really. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice ripens you into wholeness. Get a totally different vision here. There's no like point where you spike the football and in the end zone, and then you're perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice ripens you into wholeness, and wholeness would be to have a body, to have a mind, and to have a heart. Think of the Wizard of Oz. It's quite deep. We're all tin men. Do we have a heart? And how often is it online? You see. So to just even rethink practice, because this is all a practice. We're heart to heart, and we'll have 3 sections today. So if you're new, we have a talk and we practice. Trying to hear the heart of the teaching, what resonates with you. And so you let that resonate, pay attention to it. It's all awareness and resonancy when you work with the heart. And then we'll go into silence and actually practice what people call meditation or contemplation. But it's really, it's a practice of dropping the mind into the heart. So if you can consent to practice with cheerful perseverance. Now here's another thing that's a key thing. What's our culture? We're quickaholics. If you come a couple times and you don't feel like I had somebody say, been here for like 6 weeks. I have no idea what you're talking about. I said, I don't know where my heart is. How can you drop them? How can you drop your awareness in the heart? 6 weeks. That's pretty long actually in our culture. People will come once or twice. They won't come back because this takes a while. And be cheerful about it, because the greatest people in the world have done some version of this practice. Even if it's, like I walked already this morning. When I walk, I'm walking, this heart is walking into the heart of nature, of the natural world. That's a practice too. It doesn't mean you have to sit cross-legged or anything. This is a good way to do it. But there's a million ways to connect your heart with that bigger heart. See? All right, and be cheerful about it. Even though sometimes it's kind of dismal, and you feel like absolutely nothing's happening. Okay, you sit for 20. We'll do normally 20 minutes where we sit and we just, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But and it doesn't appear like anything's happening. Well, that's key. To stay committed to it, because really you don't see. You don't see the results of what's going on. You don't see what effect it's having on you while you're doing the practice, in most cases. My first teacher, Suzuki Roshi, Zen guy, they just say, just sit. Don't be thinking about it. Just sit. And it was, he said you don't have any idea what's happening during the time of sitting. No idea. So don't even try to measure it. Don't even try to judge your sitting. Just stay committed to this simple practice and see what happens in about 10 years. Or give it some time, All I can say is I live more from my heart into the world now than I used to when I started this in 1972. Started doing this. I had no idea what I was doing then either. But little by little, it's ripening. It's like it doesn't happen all at once until maybe later. So you got to have perseverance and be cheerful about it, because the greatest people who ever lived, the greatest human beings, did some version of this work. So cheerful perseverance. And then now here's the method that we're going to try to practice really forever. This is the penthouse. This is the capital. This is where we think we are. I think, therefore I am. And so we keep all our awareness here, and it's this is the important stuff. This is the important place. The top floor is the most expensive. We call the head of the heart of a country the capital, which means the head. See, somebody once told me that they liked the head of the new head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, and I like him too. But I said, "Oh no, he's not the head of the church. He's the heart of the church." But I think that's true. That's true. And so how to drop our awareness down through the body, it's the only way to get there. I spent 15 years working with a Tibetan, Reggie Ray, who just kept saying, go through the body, go through the body. And then to the center of your chest, where it's a subtle movement of awareness during formal meditation. Okay. We move down. We try to learn what this territory is. We become acquainted with it. Most people are not acquainted with moving their awareness down to the center of their chest and trying to hold it there. Why would you do that? Well, we don't think that. We think the heart's a pump and it's going about its business, and only when we have AFib do we pay any attention to it, or something like that. But there's a couple levels there. It's a magnificent physical organ, but it's the one physical organ, I think, that has a spiritual connection. I think in this heart region is where the heart of the divine and the human heart meet. It's where they can come heart to heart. And that's really what soul means. Soul means the meeting of the human and the divine. When that happens, there's a meeting. It always has to be a meeting. And so we're showing up for the meeting when we drop down, and however we practice meditation. At least here, I'm suggesting you're dropping your awareness down here. So the cave of the heart. I use that image. It's not mine. I didn't make it up. It came from Hindu mystics, because these guys lived in caves, actually. A lot of them. Ramana Maharshi, famous, lived in cave. But a cave is a real interesting kind of image, because it shelters you. You're not out in the elements. It shelters you. I'm not living in a kind of cave now. I mean, the retreat house is it's a berm house, so it's like a cave here. We're surrounded by the earth here. It has a certain feeling of a presence too, the cave of the heart. Okay. Human beings so many wouldn't have survived unless we had found caves. I mean, it's always 56 degrees around here, so you're surrounded by the earth holding you. It's a nice, comfortable idea when you get down there. Okay, so the cave of the heart. So I could just talk about two words in this poem. The first one, if, and then the next word. So we drop into the cave of the heart. Okay, and we just stay there until we're not. See, and you all know this. If you've ever even meditated once, you just try to quiet yourself. The idea is not to stop thoughts. The idea is not to have an empty mind. Impossible, pretty much, because you'd be flatlined. No, the mind keeps coming up with thoughts. So then to throw that off the agenda, the idea is to move your awareness. Awareness is different than thinking, you see. We're moving our awareness and keeping it in this region to see what happens. This is an experiment. Buddha was a great experimenter. Jesus as well. Most of the Rumi world, he just held onto this pillar and went around and shouted out poems about grief. He was feeling grief. These are the great experimenters, you see. So this is an experiment. What would happen if you focus your attention for a few minutes, 20 minutes? We usually sit for 15 or 20 minutes there, and every time it popped out to a to-do list or something else, and you noticed it, you brought it back. And so maybe it doesn't matter that, like this one story about a nun that was trying to learn to meditate with Thomas Keating, and she said after the 20 minutes, she said, Father, she said, I'm hopeless. In centering prayer, you use a prayer word to help you come back. And she said, I must use the prayer word 10,000 times in 20 minutes. And she was feeling sort of like a total washout. And he said, oh, lovely. 10,000 times that you love God more than your own thoughts. Fascinating. And she changed right away. Like, oh, this is every time that you drop into the heart, and then all of a sudden you're out thinking about something, which is what we're doing. And when you bring it back down, Dutch Zen master that taught me said, that's a Zen push-up. How do you think you get stronger? Every time. So your worst session could be your best session. 10,000 push-ups in 20 minutes. She's going to get stronger here, you see. So don't be grading yourself, and don't be expecting anything. So when we're actually there for the 2 seconds that we're there before we fly out into some other region, and what happens during that 2 seconds? What do? Nada. You're present. You're open, and you're available to have, the great thing that Mary said to Gabriel when he said, the Annunciation, he said, hey, the universe is telling you to do this. She said, well, let it be done unto me according to thy will. So really, once you get down there, you're consented to do this experiment. So once you get down there, you're just present, open, and available. POA. The power of the advocate. The advocate was the Holy Spirit. That's who you're there to meet. Okay. And so once you're there, that's it. Nothing to do. Be present, open, and available. And then let it be done unto you, whatever it is. You may not feel anything in the time. You may not register anything. Maybe something is delivered. It's not under your control, which is why the ego doesn't like to do it. So present, open, and available. Remember that. Most of the time, we're not POA, we're MIA. At least I am. Missing in action. Nowhere near the heart. Play my ego games out here. The question is, how do you learn to be POA? How do you learn to be present, open, and available? Well, by practice. It ripens you. It just changes you. More often you can do this. You see, you spend more time there. Now, the second part of the thing, the first part is if you can do this, then the next word is then. If then is a certain formula that's been used for ages. If this, then this. And so if you can do this, then the second half of the poem says, then one fine morning, with no hint of warning, the beloved simply appears at your back door. Now, this is really interesting. It happened to Merton. He bashed away for 17 years in the monastery, and towards the end of it, a couple of weeks before he had this street corner experience, which was not his last experience by any means, but he thought he'd sort of bet on the wrong horse. He thought, he didn't feel like anything was happening good. He was feeling constricted, and he wrote about it in his journal. And then, one fine morning, when he was off to see the doctor and he was ready to walk across the street at 4th and Muhammad Ali, right in the center of the shopping district, boom, everything changed. And he saw everybody shining like the sun. That's why I said, one fine morning, with not a hint of warning, the beloved will suddenly appear at your back door, not at the front door. We expect to see God in church, or like on the Camino or whatever. Merton probably thought he was a priest. He'd see God in, in mass or something or church. No, it was a surprise. It was the back door, the way you don't expect. And that's sort of the rule if you're going to become a contemplative. The good stuff comes in by the way you don't expect. So back door, it said, and then you'll be eternally one heart, shining like the sun. Had a particular tough Korean Zen master for 12 years from out at Furnace Mountain. And every time I got with him, he kept beating me over the head with this thing. He said, don't make two. He said, if you don't make two, two won't exist. And we're always making two. The mind will make two. The mind splits everything. You see, the heart resonates to the wholeness. It resonates. It doesn't think. It resonates. Same way if you open up a piano and you get a C tuning fork and you hit the C tuning fork, the C strings will vibrate. It's resonance. It's wholeness. It's instant. It's not linear. It's a different language. How you see is what you see. And so when you become more heart-centered, the world starts to change out there. But the changes happen inside. See, how you see is what you see. And then also it's what you do changes your life. But this is, got to have perseverance, got to stay committed. And you just got to forget about timeline and forget about results of the moment. Okay. And that's just sort of 60 words of kind of a game plan. So we're gonna move to doing that, to take a shot at that. And of course, you might come from another tradition and you want to spend to 20 minutes doing some other practice. Well, that's fine, because we're trying to create a space for grace, and it doesn't matter how it happens. So we'll have some silence now. And I'll put up I'm going to put up the screensaver now during this time. See if I can find it. Not mess this one up. Yeah. Can you see it? No, hopefully. And this is the closest thing I've ever seen as an icon for what it really means to drop down into the cave of the heart. This is, and icons are helpful because sometimes when you're freaking out, you just, you could open your eyes and then look at it. Yeah. Okay, so I'll leave it up there for us. So we can, the people on the tape who listen to this like next week or something, at least they will see the icon here. So we can end the recording and we'll go right into the meditation.